Welcome to today's presentation on Beyond the Booking, why reservation sales defines the luxury resort guest experience. I'm truly grateful to spend this time with those of you who care deeply about the guest experience. Reservation sales is often the very first impression that a guest is going to have of your resort. And today I want to talk about that first call and how it is so much more than just a transaction. My hope is you walk away from our time together today with tools and inspiration to confidently guide conversations away from price and toward meaning and value. Build trust, anticipation, and desire in the very first moments of a call. I would like to give you some ideas for how to use that emotionally intelligent language that reflects your property's standard of care. And finally, move beyond transactions into lasting guest relationships. Over the course of my career, I've trained over 10,000 reservation sales professionals across a very wide range of luxury hotels, ski resorts, golf resorts, and destination properties. I'm a nationally recognized expert in reservation sales and in luxury hospitality with decades of focused experience transforming how independent hotels and resorts connect with guests from the very first conversation. I'm excited to share some of the things that I have learned and share some of the things that I'm noticing right now that are helping our industry to continue to evolve, yet still retain that thing that makes it so special. So let's start with thinking a little bit about what luxury is. It's a constant conversation with all elements of a resort experience. What do I mean by that? I mean that guests are constantly sharing their sentiments, observations, opinions, and ideas, often in less conspicuous ways, but certainly through the course of a guest experience, you'll be it with a front desk staff member, a bell person, a server, a concierge. In any of those roles, there is a conversation that's occurring. Furthermore, the environment that we create in our resort also inspires a conversation. We have a conversation with lighting, with smells, a conversation with the music. So the conversations are all around, and that really becomes, in my mind, the foundation of a luxury guest experience. I consider the reservation sales experience to be the most important of those conversations. In fact, over 50% of a guest's overall satisfaction with their entire guest experience with you will lie in the ability for pleasure, excitement, warmth, and connection to occur right at that point of sale. Conversation now includes AI and technology. We know this, but those things are a choice for our guests. Technology will never replace a human, but it certainly can augment what they do and how they do it. Some guests don't want to talk with a person. We know this as well. Or maybe they just think that they don't. We will talk about that. But the truth is, guests just need to be invited into the conversation. And that, to me, is what luxury really means, is inviting guests into the conversation at all of those touch points. So think about all of the different touch points that happen prior to a guest's arrival. I'm not just talking about lodging reservations, but certainly that's part of it. There's also golf, spa, excursions. There are lessons, rentals. There is the group sales and conference sales experience oftentimes for our meeting planners. We also have ground transportation, ship sticks in some cases, maybe even a ferry or a hydrofoil tour. All of these things require us to bring our guests into the conversation. So if we outsource that conversation to what is solely available to our guests online, or what is available to our guests through potentially a TripAdvisor review, they're missing a huge element of it where feedback cannot necessarily be conveyed in the right way, or sentiment cannot be used in a way that enables something pretty inspiring to occur, the true luxury experience. It remains transactional. So let's talk about transactional, right? So I'm going to get you thinking a little bit for a moment about a situation. It may have even already happened at your own resort. Let's talk about a woman named Maya. So Maya had been dreaming of a trip for years, not just a getaway. She wasn't looking for a hotel room. She was searching for something more, a moment to reconnect with herself, to feel inspired, and to create a memory she could return to long after luggage was unpacked. She had browsed through dozens of websites and scrolled through endless images and read review after review. But when she finally picked up the phone to call a resort nestled in the mountains, what she needed wasn't on the website. She needed someone to listen. And that someone was Jordan, the reservationist. Jordan didn't begin with availability or rates. Instead, she asked, "Tell me what's bringing you." And when Maya mentioned she had just closed a chapter of her life and wanted something restorative and beautiful, Jordan leaned in. She painted a picture of a sunrise yoga on the terrace, locally sourced tasting menu with wine pairings, quiet trails off the property, a warm stone massage. She didn't just sell her a stay, she offered a feeling. She helped Maya to see herself there. And by the time Maya booked, she wasn't comparing rates. She was counting down the days. So this is the dream. I'm sure all of us that are here today, we spend our time and effort and energy creating an environment where that dream can actually occur. And that's what we love to do as well as hospitality professionals, is to build that experience for guests. What is the reality that actually occurs? Well, there are a few things to consider. I think the reality is that we do this quite often. I think the other reality that we're seeing right now, though, is that we do see quite a few guests that miss that opportunity to have that kind of experience. The current channel mix is about 67% of reservations occurring online, to 33% for a voice or a live agent. This is mostly true for our upscale and luxury properties. And of course, it always depends on the situation, but we do see this as a pretty reliable proportion. Online is great, right? Because it is high volume, it is convenient, it is scalable. It's also excellent for our guests that already know what they want, or somebody had already told them exactly what they should be considering for this particular trip. It gets a little trickier when we look at the voice or the live agent channel. That's personalized. It's trust building. It's high conversion, potentially. And it is something that I think takes a lot of time and effort and energy as well. It takes more resources to execute. But let's think about a few things here. If 26% of those actually experience exceptional service, it's no wonder, because we sometimes push them to the channel. We push them to the channel when we have an agent that just sells rates, dates, and space. So, thank you for calling Glass Mountain Resort. What are your dates? How many are in your party? This is what we have. Do you want to book that? That is in no way considered a luxury conversation, but it is something that we actually hear more often than we would like to hear. So we would call that probably a transactional booking. So getting to a transformational conversation requires some time and requires some energy. But you can see here that 68% of luxury travelers would be willing to pay more for that experience. We also know, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, that 86% of buyers are willing to pay more for a better experience. So it really is good business overall for us to focus our team on more of the transformational guest experience. And that does require some attention and training for sure. But why does it matter? Because voice bookings often translate into guests willing to spend more and to remain more loyal. So I know there are so many ways to calculate a customer lifetime value, but I'll give you a very basic one to consider. Let's just say your ADR is 500. and you typically have on average a 4-night stay, and that guest spends an additional, let's say, $2,000 on services, right, while they're with you, a spa treatment, some meals, they experience some retail, and they stay on average 5 times, and they tell some friends. That single person has the potential to bring in over $750,000 over time. And it is true that guests who feel emotionally connected to a brand have a 306% higher lifetime value. So conversely, that same guest, if that was an unmet expectation, particularly at point of sale, and you no longer have that lifetime value of that one guest, and you no longer have the positive word of mouth, but alternatively the negative word of mouth, then you could potentially turn that into $3 million in lost revenue. So this starts at the reservation. While I believe that websites and chatbots and all of the technology we have and reviews, they do a beautiful job of teeing it up, it still requires that human connection in order to improve revenue per average guest, improve ADR, as well as conversion. So I can tell you just from experience that we have had many resorts that we work with who have achieved an improved ROI over just a very short 3-week period when they start focusing more on a quality transformational conversation. Is it more expensive? You bet. But it's also not cheap to continue the turnover loop that happens so often in the reservation sales function. So consider that it could potentially cost, and these are very conservative numbers, but this could cost over $32,000 just to hire and train one new employee. Offset that with the $750,000 in potential lifetime value revenue. Offset that with the potential lost revenue because we had someone that wasn't able to answer the phone, or we had someone that wasn't sure how to create value or didn't know what qualifying questions to ask. So it can become very expensive, and training needs to be commensurate with the amount of revenue that that person can potentially generate. Some of our client partners have lodging reservation staff that are responsible each for $4.7 million just in lodging revenue alone. You can see how valuable that one person is and how the training and time and energy that you invest in that one person absolutely pays off. So this all sounds great, right, Erica? So let's talk a little bit about what that means, though. And concretely, what are some things that we can do about it to make sure that when that guest calls, that we capture that reservation with the right intention so that it's transformational and not transactional. So experience is the new luxury, and it begins at hello. Reservationists are no longer just order takers. They are storytellers and trust builders and mood setters. I recall a time when we had a reservationist we were working with who told us about a time a guest called in. We had no availability for this particular guest. And this staff member looked and looked and looked, and it was so frustrating. And at the conclusion of the call, she said, "Mr. Jones, I'm so sorry that we weren't able to find what you were looking for. I will reach back out to you if we find something else that might be a great option for this upcoming trip. What else can I do for you? Is there anything else I can do for you?" And he said, "Oh, you can get me a Porsche." And he said it jokingly, and it was cute, and they had a good laugh. But this emotionally intelligent reservationist took it to an extra level. She actually did some research. She researched the 50-mile radius around where this particular guest lived, potential guest, lived. She found the 7 Porsche dealers that were around him at that time, and she took the initiative to say in an email, Mr. Jones, I wanted to let you know that while we weren't able to find that beautiful vacation home you were looking for, I was able to find about 7 Porsche dealers within a 50-mile radius, and there was one in particular that has that 911 you were looking for, that has very low mileage, excellent body condition, and it is available immediately. I hope that this helps, and I also hope that you find what you are looking for. Good luck, and please reach back out when you're ready to take that Porsche on a road trip and come to see us. So that's a micro moment, right? That sparks desire and builds anticipation, and that's actually selling. So think of these things that we can do in a reservation that make it transformational. That was about building a relationship. That was about moving it into a trust mindset or headspace. That's something that AI or an online reservation cannot do, but it builds the loyalty that we're looking for. Absolutely. So let's talk about tools that you can use today to guide conversations away from price and towards meaning and value.